grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Well.
I told you I'd get it done. And this is Fatal Blend.
Yeah. And this is me. I'm T.
And I'm Jay.
And if you are a listener of us from the past, this last year, you will notice that our intro is different. If you're brand new, our intro is different. And so we're introducing ourselves to you.
And if you're brand new, go back previous to episode 52 and you'll hear the new or the old intro.
You'll hear the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I told you I'd get it done.
I am going to just put this out here, though, for everybody who's like, oh, he got it done 2 days ago.
Doesn't
2
matter.
days before we recorded this was when he got it done.
Does not.
So it does matter.
Nope.
It's called procrastination, and
it's
it
called
drives
I
me
got it done.
absolutely crazy.
Done,
I
done,
can't
and
handle it.
oh yeah, done. Oh, and guess what? At the end of the episode, there's an outro.
There's a different outro. So
dun, dun, dun.
we got that done. This is our 52nd episode. So that means that we have officially been making podcasts for a year.
And maybe one day I'll upgrade my sound pad so I can do like a cheering sound, but I don't have enough options on the one we use right now. So, yay!
I mean,
52.
I feel like in my mind, we're never going to really use a cheering sound for serial killers.
Hey, when he gets caught.
No.
And when they die.
So welcome. This is our new intro into the next 52 episodes, I guess.
Let's call it season 2.
Season 2 of Fatal Blend.
And maybe this becomes a thing where every season
I don't know because
I do a new intro.
I don't know because I really like this intro. I'm not gonna lie.
We really liked our intro,
Yeah.
and then a year later we were like, okay, maybe we change it.
I think we'll revisit it. But to be honest with you, for anybody who's been listening for a while, I am a huge Disney fan. The only thing that I like more than true crime and coffee is Disneyland. And the thing that I think I really like about this is our intro. The guy sounds like he belongs on the Haunted Mansion ride. So it's kind of a little bit of both of the things.
Okay,
that
so
I totally
maybe
love.
season 3 will be Pirates of the Caribbean guy.
No, that's no.
Or
Anyways,
or like Mickey Mouse saying something about serial killers.
Anyways, so if you've never been here before, this is a podcast that we like to talk about coffee. We tell you, or not coffee most of the time. But we tell you what we're drinking because we sit down, we grab a drink, and we talk about serial killers.
All right. So with that being said, what are you drinking on?
Well, since it's a special episode and it's our 52nd episode, I am drinking a Frappuccino, caramel Frappuccino. It was kind of muggy and gross today, and I was feeling something a little sweet and a little sweetness that I like that's frozen. So we're going with a caramel frap.
Well, for those people who've listened before, I've done hot tea with sugar, and I decided to mix it up a little bit, and I did iced tea with sugar.
All right, so we are talking about the Bloody Benders. I am going to just give you a quick fair warning. Y'all are going to be disappointed in the ending, and I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is. Just the way it is. This is a special episode, remember. So this episode is the episode that's not going to be like any of the others ever. And I mean ever. So the Bloody Benders are made up of John Almira, also known as Elvira, John Jr., and Kate Bender. They had 11 victims or more.
Always or more.
Their dates of murder were 1871 to 1873 in Kansas. And the method of murder was actually unknown. And the characteristics is that they used their own home as a killing field. Now, we're going to do some background. We're going to get into it. But like I said, this does kind of have a disappointing ending. And we'll get into that later. And then I'll explain to you why I did this. So the background. This story actually begins as the Civil War ends in America. That's how long ago this was. The Osage Native Americans were actually uprooted from their land in Kansas and they were moved to Oklahoma. And if anybody knows anything about the history of the United States, if you were to look more into it, it's pretty fucking shitty. because this was their land, and the Americans came in and said, hey, we want to make some room for the European immigrants who are coming to settle in America so that they can make their life in America. So why don't you scoochie on over to Oklahoma, which is what is now known as Oklahoma. It was not Oklahoma at the time, but why don't y'all scooch over to that land over there, and that can be your land. And then they just like kept doing that to them. But this specific thing takes place where Kansas had just become like a territory. So they're kicking out all the Native Americans and making room for the European immigrants. Now, the Benders are one of those European immigrants, and they actually came over to America from Germany. And they ended up posting a claim on 160 fucking acres, which
That blows
what?
my mind.
Like
Just
we
to
couldn't
walk in
share,
and go, boop.
and we couldn't share. We couldn't share
I
with
mean-
with the Native Americans. We couldn't be like, how about you guys take 80 and then we let people take 80? Like, what the fuck?
I think if it was 161, they probably would have shared, but 160,
I was
that's
just like, Jesus.
barely big enough to put a fence around.
Apparently. So they end up posting a claim on this 160 acre plot of land that's in like southeastern Kansas. Now, John and John Jr., they actually showed up first, and the senior John, he actually like did not speak English very well. He was a German immigrant. He literally did not know English. He was grumpy and gruff, and he barely spoke English. And then John Jr. actually spoke fluent English. And so when they pulled up, it's not a post. I don't remember what they called him. It's not a postmaster, but there was an office that you would go to basically and say, hi, I'm here. I would like to post a claim on land. What land is available? And then they say, well, there's these plots that are available. You go out and you pick them. You go out and find which one you want. You like literally are like, okay, I'll take this one. And you just fucking squat your ass there and it's yours. 160 acres, by the way. Again, what the fuck? That's a lot of land. So that's what they do. They pull up to this like office thing. And they're like, hey, we're looking for this land. And they're like, well, we only have a couple plots left. Like, this is what we got. So they find this one. And they're like, yeah, we'll take this one. So the two guys, they stake their claim. And they end up building a small house on the property. They work like literally day and night to make a small house. They build a barn, a corral, and they dug a well. They did all this on this property because it's theirs, because they're getting it prepared for the two women in the family to show up. So they basically go ahead and they're like, we're going to get the land ready. You guys show up. Okay, fine. Now, according to the reports, now I'm just letting you know, I read a whole ass book on this. And then there's a ton of other different like resources, but I read a full ass like book from front to back. And it was very interesting. It was very historical and I really liked it. So I'll tell you what that one is at the end in case anybody is ever interested. But according to the reports, the older John, he was actually around 60 years old at this time that they came and staked their claim. And then John Jr. was believed to be around 25, because you also have to remember this is 1871 to 73. They don't have a lot of records of people. Like it's a little hard to find out information.
But I'll tell you what, they're built different. Cause like,
no shit. At
in
60
your
years old and
60s, you're
25 building a
and
house.
shit,
Yeah.
And I'm over here like washing my car out of breath.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fat, but
they're
come
digging.
on.
I mean, they're digging wells and they don't have the fucking tools that we do now
Nah.
to build this shit. John Jr., like I said, people thought he was about 25 years old. But the thing about him was people described him as a half-wit. And they described him as this because he would laugh at the most inappropriate times. And oftentimes he would giggle and laugh for no reason at all. And so he really threw people for a loop because people are like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? Like he'll like stand there with a goofy ass look on his face and start laughing and like nobody's talking to him. And then they'll say something that's like serious and he'll like giggle. And they're just like, what is up with this kid? But he was their only form of communication because the older John couldn't speak English. Now, in 1871, like later in 1871, Elmira and Kate show up to the property. Now, Elmira, again, she has also been reportedly, she has been named Elvira too by some people. She was said to be about 55 years old when she moved there, and she was actually referred to as Ma Bender. Like, nobody called her Elmira. Everybody, including the people in the town that they transplanted themselves to, called her Ma Bender.
I mean, I think that was something that was like just common
Just
back
what
in
you
the
did,
day.
the mother,
I mean,
the
I think we should
matriarch.
bring it back around.
No, thank you.
Hell yeah.
Because that would be me, and I don't want to be that. Thank
You
you.
want to be Ma and I'll be Pa?
No. Now, the description of Ma Bender was that she was not hospitable at all, and nobody actually liked her. And she was actually nicknamed by the community after she had moved in, the She-Devil.
Wow.
People just didn't, they were like, no. Like, between her and fucking John Sr., they were like, okay, those guys suck. Now, Kate, on the other hand, was a young woman. She was about 23 years old, and she had actually created a reputation among all the townspeople as a psychic healer. She also practiced a cult, which is the belief of supernatural. It is the believing that supernatural beliefs and practices, and this typically falls outside of the scope of an organized religion and science. So this would actually involve things like magic, mysticism, that kind of stuff. So that she sold this shit to the people. Now, Kate would oftentimes give lectures in spiritualism, and she would hold seances. She also spoke very well fluent English. She was also described as an attractive and very influential person. She would publicly speak, and people would literally believe what she was saying. And she was also said to be the most personable and generally liked by everybody in the community of the Bender family. So she would go into their town. She would communicate with people. She'd bring people out to their house, all kinds of things. And people trusted her, and they actually kind of liked her. And the men thought she was beautiful.
But I mean, she also kind of wins by default, because if you look at the rest of the family, you got the She-Devil.
Yeah.
You got
Grumpy fucking
Grumpy
grandpa.
John.
Yeah.
And then you got Halfway.
Giggly fucking
So,
John
I mean,
Jr.
You're kind of winning by default at that point.
Yeah. So after the family had moved into the home, again, this home was built on 160 acres of property. They actually so they have this little house. It's like a little cabin, and they build a garden. They have a barn where they have animals, whatever. They're making a life. Well, inside of their little cabin, they actually hang up a canvas wagon cover, like as a curtain, and it spanned through literally the middle of the home. The reason for this was they were creating two different spaces in the home. So the front end of the cabin was reserved for people who were stopping by. This was actually turned into a dining space, a kitchen, and a store. So travelers were then able to stop by and eat something. They would buy stuff for their journey, like crackers, sardines, candy, etc. They'd sell stuff, and then they would continue on their journeys. Literally, kind of like Oregon Trail type of shit, right? Like you stop in
Give
those
medicine
little
for
fucking
dysteria,
That's what they did. So that was the front half of their cabin, and they also had a place that people could stay overnight if they pulled into their little area a little bit late and wanted to take like a nap before they or sleep the night off, so they could go. They had like a small area that people could stay the night. They actually ended up calling this the Bender Inn. That's what they had that. And they actually had a sign on the front of their door of their home that read groceries. So people knew when they were coming by, they could stop in there and get groceries or, stuff. And the back half of the cabin was the living space for the Bender family. So here they have this, again, because you have to remember, they came over in a covered wagon. This is literally Oregon Trail. Think of what you see on Oregon Trail with the fucking covered wagons, because guess what? They actually, people are literally traveling to Independence and shit, which is legit what they were doing in the Oregon Trail, right?
We might have talked to the Benders when we played the game.
Maybe. Well, maybe, but hopefully not, because you'll kind of get why you don't actually want to talk to the Benders.
Well, they're on our podcast.
They're on our
I'm
podcast.
Pretty sure you don't want to talk to them.
So they basically create this area, which brings us into obviously the murders. So in May of 1871, they have now established themselves. They've got this fucking thing up, and there is a body of a man named Jones. And again, no first name.
Old Jones.
I think of all I can think of is, have you ever heard the joke of the man with the wood leg named Jones? Jones? No, I've never heard of him. But what's the name of his other leg? That's off of Mary Poppins.
Wow.
That's all I think of when they're, okay,
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. I don't know why that pops. Anyways, so there's a body of a man named Jones that's found. He is discovered in Drum Creek, and his throat is cut and his skull is smashed in. Now, the owner of the Drum Creek plot of fucking land was suspected, but nothing ever came out of the suspicions. But it's kind of like, oh, we found a body on your property. Now, mind you, this
Must
guy
have been
has,
you.
again, like 100 and something acres of property. So no guarantees that it's that guy, but they're, first place to look. Then in February of 1872, 2 more men are found. They actually had the same exact injuries as Jones. Then, okay, so all these ones that I'm going through, they are all labeled as 1871, like missing as of 1871. There is literally no dates of when they actually were killed. There's no dates of when they actually went missing, but all this shit happened during like 1871. Ben Brown from Howard County, he had $2,600 on him. He was from another area in Kansas. He was on the road traveling to somewhere, and he comes up missing. He just goes missing.
And $2,600 back
That's a
then?
lot, because
That's
these people are traveling to stake claims on the Kansas land, and so he's got his money to build his life, right? Then W.F. McCrotty, he actually
McCrotty.
he actually had $38 on him. His wagon and his team of horses actually goes missing along with him. Then Henry McKenzie, he's traveling to Independence from Hamilton
There
County,
it is.
Indiana. So if you're going to Independence, that's going west, right? So he's coming from Indiana, traveling west, and he comes through the area somewhere, and he goes missing. And he had $36 on him, and his horses went missing too. So his horses were gone, and his money is gone, and he's gone.
And the Benders just keep getting more horses in their stable.
No. Well, Johnny Boyle then from Howard County, Kansas, he has $10 on him, and his pacing mare and $850 goes missing along with him. So $850 saddle that he had for his pacing mare goes missing along with his $10 and his body. Then George Lochner and his infant daughter Marianne, they were traveling with $1,900, and the 2 of them go missing. Then this man named John Greery disappears. A man named Red Smith disappears. And someone named Abigail Roberts goes missing as well. Now,
I'm guessing that it probably wasn't uncommon that people went missing.
So
when
it
they're
was
traveling,
not
like,
uncommon. It was not uncommon that
like,
they would go missing because
you
people
didn't
would
show up. Yeah,
die
people
of
die and
dysentery and fucking whatever because they're
Yeah.
traveling in covered wagons.
snake bite.
However, all of these people traveled on the same road. They all
Right.
traveled on the same path, and that's what was kind of weird. Is
Right. What I'm saying is
Yeah.
it probably didn't flag for a while because
correct.
they don't necessarily know where they're missing quite yet.
You'll see. We kind of get into that. Okay. So in December of 1872, there are actually various body parts that end up being found. But at the time, they were unsure who these body parts belonged to. They were unsure where they came from. They didn't know if it was part of town members. They didn't know if animals had like killed somebody on their travels and then brought their body parts. So they just kind of like, okay, well, that sucks. Now, also in December 1872, 4 men's bodies were actually found with their skulls crushed in and their throats cut. So now when you think about that, is now 5 or 6 people that they have found with that same exact injuries, all in similar areas, the Drum Creek area. That is where they're finding a lot of these bodies. And they're kind of like, they all have the same injuries. That's definitely not animal.
Right.
Somebody has killed these people. Now, in early 1873, a man named Dr. William York goes missing. He has $2,000 on him, and he disappears. And because he was traveling.
West.
He was
Or he was traveling through the
area. Yeah. Now, by 1873, there is now a noticeable amount of people that have gone missing while on their travels through this. It's not a road, but through this specific trail that people are traveling. However, at this time, it is not unusual for travelers to go missing because of the rough terrain, the fact that they're traveling by wagon, the fact that they're traveling sometimes as we all know with the Oregon Trail, if you leave too late, you might die in the wintertime.
Yep.
I feel like we left from Independence. Did we not leave from Independence? I feel like you're leaving from
I
Independence.
don't remember.
I don't either. Now that I say that, I think we leave from Independence think that's where you start your journeys.
And this is back to the Oregon Trail.
So it's not uncommon. Like you had said, it's not uncommon. So it's like, okay, whatever. But it is noticeable that like, hold on. Like we have people who are coming here or writing letters saying, have you seen these people? We were expecting them. They did not show up. And it's like they would go like from town to town to town to find out where the fuck the last time they were seen, right? Now, one of the people who was missing kind of triggered like a little bit of alarm bells. And this was George Lochner and his infant daughter. So this is what kind of started the whole like, what's going on? See, what happened was George Lochner and his wife, they had a son and a daughter and himself and his wife. Well, his son gets sick and dies. Well, his wife also gets sick and dies. So after he loses his wife and his son, his family lived in like Iowa and they were like, come stay with us. Like there's no reason for you to live where you're living. So he packs up himself, his daughter, his life savings, and on the road they go. Now, before he leaves, he talks to his neighbor who happens to be a man named Dr. William York. And he's like, hey buddy, I'm going to sell you these things because I'm not coming back. And he's a wealthy man. He's like, yeah, okay, I got you. And he's like, where are you going? And he's like, oh, I'm going to Iowa. I'm going to go live with my family. Like, there's nothing left for me here. And he's like, please keep in touch. He's like, of course I will. Okay. Now they're traveling from Kansas toward Iowa. Okay. So now they're traveling east, right? So they're traveling through Kansas, which again, this is in Kansas. So they're not on the road for very long, but they never show up in Iowa. And this actually triggers his family members to be like, what's going on? Well, they somehow, some way know Dr. William York, and they actually phone them, and they're like, maybe not phone. They probably.
I was going to say they might have
wrote letters, or a lot of the ones. When I read into this, they traveled by horses back to these places to find stuff. So they contact the York family, and they're like, hey, did he leave? Like, and when did he leave? And so they start talking about it. Well, Dr. York's wife is like, I'm very concerned because he has this infant daughter, which by the way, in the book, it was an infant. In most of the articles I read was infant. There were like 3 articles though that said she was, some people have claimed that she was like 10 years old, but it doesn't make sense based off the bodies they found. So I'm pretty sure she was an infant. So she's kind of like, I'm really worried because he's got the baby with him and it's just him and her, and he would never fucking put her in danger. Like, meaning if the road was bad, he'd find another road. If the weather was bad, he'd find somewhere to stay and tuck away until the weather was good. He would not be traveling all the time. He'd be stopping. He'd be safe. He had money with him. Like, there's something not right. Dr. William York agrees with his wife. And he's like, yep, this is not right. So I'm going to go find him. Just going to go find him. So Dr. York sets out on his own in his horse and carriage, and off he goes because he's like, no, I'm going to travel the same way that he was traveling, and I'm going to find them. Because what if they got hurt? What if
broke a wagon
wheel? What if their ox broke? No, I'm just kidding. They didn't have oxes. It was a horse. But yeah, what if their wagon wheel broke? Like, I could probably help them. So off he goes. Well, as he's going through his travels, I don't know if it was him or somebody else, but George's wagon is discovered and it's completely abandoned. There's nothing in it either. No bodies, no baby, no man, no nothing. Nothing, no food, nothing. Like, literally his
it's
shit.
Been stripped.
It's been stripped. And so that's obviously a cause of concern. Now, William has a family. He has children. He has a wife. And he actually did not travel extreme distances because of this. So it did not make much sense that he also would disappear and never show up in Iowa. And so this is really not sitting well because now William's wife is like, okay, wait a minute. George is not, he's gone. Never showed up in Iowa. My husband left months ago and I've heard nothing from him. He's gone. And so by this time, people are now talking about this Osage Trail. And they're saying like, you know, when we really think about it, there's quite a few people that are going missing on this specific trail. And they actually start to avoid this trail because they're like, I'm thinking there's something's not right. So then on March 28th, 1873, William's brother arrives at the Bender Inn. And he's there because William's wife has contacted family and said, I don't know what happened to him. And now William York's brother is like a lawyer and like a rich guy and like politician type dude. And he's like, I got this. So he like rounds up the fucking cavalry of people and he's like, let's do this. So he starts going and investigating where his brother, from the minute he left his home, where did he go? So he'd stop, he'd follow his trail and stop literally at every place he could. Have you seen him? Was he here? So the Bender Inn is part of it. And that's because he had gone to the townspeople and they're like, well, I mean, the Bender Inn, a lot of people stop there. And so he's like, great. So he goes there and he starts asking questions like about his brother. Like, did he potentially be here? Whatever. And the Benders actually tell him that, yes, we did see him. He did stop here, but he left and that it was possible that he may have ran into some problems during the next leg of his journey because you know how these roads can be. These trails can be a little cray-cray sometimes.
A little tricky.
Little animal issues, maybe some rough road, maybe some thievery going on. So William's brother is like, okay. And so he's like, thank you very much. And he leaves. So then on April 3rd, 1873, Colonel York, again, this is his brother, returns back to the Bender Inn.
Damn nice family, though. Like Dr. York, Colonel York. Like,
oh, yeah, no, they're. So he returns to the Bender Inn and he now has some armed men with him. And he has now been told by a woman who lived in this city, not city, their town, in their little township.
check out the she-devil.
No, but what she does say is that you might want to take a second look at those Benders because I was at the Bender's house and Ma Bender got mad at me and she threatened me with her knives and she's not to be trusted. And so, of course, he goes back and he's like, can I ask you, did this incident happen? To which the Benders are like, absolutely not. Like Kate Bender, because again, the mom doesn't speak English. The dad doesn't speak English. And also, everybody's under the understanding that you don't talk to them because they literally don't understand what you're saying. So you have to talk to Kate and John Jr. So they're talking to Kate and Kate and John are like, she would never, like, no, she did not do that. She would never do that. I think this woman's just upset because she wanted Kate to give her a psychic reading and she didn't like what she heard. So she's making up stories now about our family. So the Colonel York then says, well, may I speak to Ma Bender? And they're like, I mean, you can try. So he starts telling Ma Bender the same thing. Like, did you get upset? Did you threaten this woman with knives? To which Ma Bender gets really angry and yells at the men. And she threatens the men and she tells the men that the reason she did that, so she admits to it. And she says, I did that because that woman was a witch. Okay, so she, first of all, understood English just fine.
Yep.
Now, at this point, it also becomes very clear that Ma Bender, while she doesn't speak very good English, she can clearly understand what's being said to her. And this is like shocking because everybody's like, oh my God, we literally talk around her. And this whole time she totally knows what we're saying. And so they're like, that's fucking weird. Like, why would you not acknowledge that when we speak? Why are you not acknowledging that you at least understand? Now, the York family and the men that accompanied him and the Roaches, which is actually the Bender's neighbors, like they're off their fucking 160 acres, of course, not like directly across the street, but down a ways, down the Osage Trail. They all actually feel that the Benders are guilty of some reason of this Dr. York missing. They can't really like put their finger on it, but just between the group of them, they're like, no, there's something. Yeah, there's something there. Now, Kate had actually asked Colonel York before he left. She like cornered him and she was like, hey, would you want to come back tomorrow by yourself? And maybe I can like use my psychic abilities to locate your Dr. William York. Or maybe she was going to kill him.
With a little to the neck.
And so he obviously did not. He was like, no, I'm good. Thank you. So the township meets at this point. They've called a meeting to discuss the fact that so many travelers have now gone missing off this trail. And the fact that not as many people are coming through, which also is bad for everybody who lives on the trail because they all have little like things that they can sell or trade or so it's hurting the township. They're not going to be able to prosperously grow and then people are missing. So that's not good. So they decide they're going to have a meeting about this. Now the Benders, John Jr. and I think John Sr. go to the meeting. And everybody's up in a fucking uproar. And they're just like, listen, folks, like, we're not having it. Like, we need to figure this out. And so at this time that they had this meeting, there have been now 10 people reported that had reportedly gone missing on that specific trail. And it was at this meeting that the town had decided that they thought it would be a good idea if they could search every farmstead that's along that trail just to rule out anything. Now, everybody was like, abso-fucking-lutely, you can come start with my home.
Except for...
You can come search away because, yes, I agree. We need to find out what the hell is going on. The only ones who did not volunteer their land were the Benders. They just kept completely silent and pretended like nobody asked them to look at their property. So then in May of 1873, another neighboring farmer named Billy Toll, he's like riding his fucking horse and carriage down the trail, and he looks over and he notices that the Bender Inn seems like really quiet, and it seems kind of like vacant. And he's kind of like, that looks like weird, because also like the animals look like they've been starving. Like they don't look like they've been fed for a couple of days, and there's no water, there's nothing. And he's like, that's weird. So he actually heads into the town and he tells the township trustee that, hey, listen, I don't think the Bender Inn is open, and I don't know if something might have happened to them, because there's like no movement in that house. I haven't seen anybody, and like the animals, there's no food, there's no water. And so the trustee was like, okay, yeah, let's go check it out, because in their minds, something happened to the Bender family. And they actually were going to go out that day, but like the weather got real shitty. And so they had to wait a couple of days before they could actually go to the property. And so they finally do. They decide they're going to go. So when they go to head out there, they're literally at first, they're like, two things, folks. We don't know if something happened to the Benders. And since so many people have gone missing on this trail, they might be the next set of victims of missing people. So number one, we're going to head out there. Number two, is there anybody who'd be willing to come volunteer? And we're going to search their property, because we need to figure out what's going on. So several hundred people showed up to search this property, probably because they all believed the Benders had something to do with the missing people. Now, this also included Colonel York, who shows up, and he's like, aha, I'm here. He's like, yes, sir. Now, it is believed, again, that when they originally did this, it's because they were actually, the belief is they were looking for the Benders, because they thought something bad had happened potentially to the Benders. However, when they get there, they look in the cabin and it's empty. Like empty. Like so empty, they're like, there's no way they went missing. They fucking left. They took all their shit with them. They're fucking gone. Like in the middle of the night, poof, vanished. They're gone. No food, no clothing, none of the family possessions. It's completely gutted. Like the whole inside is empty. So now they're kind of like, okay, well, we know they didn't just disappear. So they're looking for as they're walking around going, okay, so what is going on? They start to be like, something doesn't smell right. It smells a little funky in this house. A little weird odor. The sheriff, or like the officer of the town, had originally said like it kind of smelled like dead animals, is what his description was. And so they were like, but where the fuck is it coming from? So they're walking through this house, and well, actually they did go check the barn, because they thought for sure they were going to find dead, like, horses in there. Yeah. Because they were like, there's some funky ass fucking smell.
And they probably thought, I mean, I'm sure part of them thought like, ooh, yep, they're the killers. But if the guy was saying like the horses and animals were like malnutritioned and it's been a couple of days.
Right. Yeah.
They're probably thinking,
like,
oh shit, we got dead animals.
That's what they thought. And so they start searching. Well, they don't find dead animals, but they can still smell this smell. And they're like, what the fuck? And so they're searching through this house. And again, it's not very big. And they're like, I mean, I can envision them like on the fucking like sniffing all around the walls and like the floors. And they end up going by this bed. And the smell is like a little stronger by the bed. They're like, what the heck? So they move the bed. There's a rug. They move the rug and they're like, oh shit, there's a door here. So they find this door and they open the door, and it's like a trap door. They open the door. And by the way, this door was nailed shut. It was not supposed to be open. So they were like, okay, this is weird. They open the door and it's empty. There's nothing in there. But they do find, as they go down into this like area, the smell is fucking atrocious. And they take a closer look and they find what they believe to be clotted blood on the ground floor. It's like stone of this room. And this room is actually only 6 feet deep and it's like 7 feet wide. So it's like a little like thing.
Little tiny room.
Yes. And so they're like, well, this is a little strange. Now the floor again is made out of stone. So they're able to see that it's discolored and they're not really sure what's going on. So the searchers are like, fuck that. Okay, we're breaking the stone because something's under this ground. So they break up the stone and they start digging underneath the stone floor into the dirt. And they actually find nothing out of the ordinary. They expected to find bones, bodies, anything, nothing. They found nothing, which, I mean, that's what their expectation
and for
is.
those listeners out there, she got you twice. You opened the door and you found nothing.
Oh, yeah.
You dug in the dirt and you found
Nothing. Now, they obviously at this point are like, okay, something is very wrong. This smells like death. There is no death, but there's got to be death somewhere. Like, this is weird. So they decide, and I fucking shit you not, they decide, no, we're just going to move the whole damn house. So they hook the fucking house up to like ropes and horses and move the bitch. Like drag the horses drag the fucking house completely off the foundation.
I wonder how much horsepower that took.
I'm saying probably like 8. No, I don't fucking know. So they actually are like, nope, something's not quite right. They look in the dirt again now after they've dug, and now the house is completely gone. So it's like open, and they start to realize that, holy shit, this soil is blood soaked. It's not like wet ground soil. It's fucking covered in blood, but there's no bodies. And so they're like, what the fuck is going on here? They decide, okay, we're searching under the whole goddamn house, because there's obviously bodies here. Because they're now at this point, they're like, is it just that there's bodies underneath like where the floor was? And so the blood's just kind of seeping into all these places.
That's where the cutting and bashing happened. Within that room.
Close. So they search, they actually dig up like the whole entire foundation of the house, and they do not find any bodies. They do not find any bones. And they're just kind of like, I don't understand, because we know at this point, like, these people killed these people. We know that they killed at least something or somebody, and it's really awful. So then they're like, okay, I guess we just need to search the property now, because it's, again, 160 fucking acres.
Fan out.
So they take this like metal probe thing and they walk around like the property, and anywhere that they look and it looks like the ground could have been disturbed, they stick this metal probe in the ground to see if it hits anything, whatever. I mean, the description of one of them was that they would put the probe in the ground and they would know if they would hit a body, because it would like mush but be hard. Like, it was a weird feel, but there was a specific feeling they were looking for. So they start going around. Well, they find that in the garden, okay, there is like this area of the garden that looks very freshly dug up. And they're like, I mean, obviously it's a garden, so that could be but you know what? For shits and gigs. And they put the fucking probe in there and they're like, oh, okay. And they find feet.
Mushy.
They find feet, which, by the way, the feet are barely buried like inches under the ground. So they find the feet and they uncover this person, and it ends up being Dr. William York. And so they're like, oh, fuck. Okay, we think we know what's going on here. And so they're like, nope, we're gonna look for some more bodies.
Well, if they found the feet in the garden, they should go look in the bathroom, because I'm sure that's where all
No, his body was there.
Oh, because I was going to say,
they found his feet first.
I'm sure in the bathroom is all the head and shoulders.
Oh, my God. You're not funny, dad jokes. You're not funny. So they decide at that point, we need to spend a little more time here. So they continue to search property, and they actually do end up finding a total of 8 more bodies among the garden and their property. Now, one of the bodies was found in their well, actually.
Ew.
With body parts also in the well. And all of the bodies' heads had been bashed in and their throats had been cut, with the exception of one.
Interesting.
So yes. So right there, that you already know now, they found 8, but you add that 8 to the other 6 people, or the other 6 people they found. They know now.
Yep, we're now up to
these
14.
people have done this fucking shit. We know it. The only body they found that was not bashed in and was not throat cut was the body of a baby girl. And she was actually found buried with a larger man. and there was no significant signs of what could have caused her death. So the thought is that she was either strangled or buried alive with her dad, who they had killed. Now, after the search and the discovery of all these different bodies, there's an investigation, obviously, and a search for the Bender family begins, because they're like, okay, we know that these fucking people somebody in that family or whatever killed all these people. That whole family has something to do with this, because first of all, it's a little ass fucking 1-bedroom shack. And so you're not killing them secretly. And second of all, y'all, this was definitely your fucking thing. Now, it was said that the Benders would actually welcome visitors into their inn at any time. And when you would come in, they would give them a seat at a table to eat some food that Kate would cook. Now, during that time, one of the men, either John Sr. or John Jr., would come around the fucking curtain that's hanging and bash the person in their head with a hammer. And then they would drag their bodies to the trap door, slice their throats, and throw them into the trap door and let them bleed to death down there. After they bled to death, they would bury their body or cut them up. And then what they would do is they would take all their belongings and get rid of whatever evidence they could. Now, it has also been stated and believed, and I actually believe this, is that the Benders killed for the thrill of it, not for any other reason. And the reason why was because they did not have one specific targeted type of person. Sometimes the people would be having like a shit ton of values and money and things like that, and other times they'd have nothing on them, and they would still kill these people. It didn't matter. They weren't killing.
If it was just something they said about Ma Bender's cooking or something.
No. Well, no. They would kill because they like to kill. Literally because they like to kill for whatever reason. Because there were people, they found bodies, they found the person by talking through the investigation. That person had 0 things on. Some of them didn't even have horses and carriages. They might have been walking the fucking trail and they'd still kill them. So it's not like we killed them because we wanted their belongings. Because that's what I originally thought was, well, yeah, I mean, they're probably stealing all their money and all their shit. But that wasn't who they went for. Now, there was a man named William Pickering who had actually stopped at the Bender Inn, and he actually said that he refused to sit in the chair. So he said that when he went in there, Kate offered to make him something to eat for his long travels, and she said, "Go ahead and have a seat at our table." And he said the table has one chair, and the back of the chair is actually facing the back, so your back is facing this long curtain behind you. And he said, "I refuse to sit in that chair because the curtain had a bunch of stains on it and it grossed me out. So I wouldn't go sit there." And so I stood with Kate in the kitchen, and there was like a main counter where they would do transactions. And he's like, "That's where I ate my food." And he said that Kate actually at one point said, "Go sit in the seat and eat your food." And he was like, "I don't really want to." And she threatened him with a knife, and he fucking got up and ran out because he was like, "What the fuck? I don't want to sit near your stained ass fucking curtain, bitch." Like, what?
Stained with brain matter.
Well, that's the thing, is probably stained with blood, because they were, according to what people's biggest thoughts are, is they would bash these people in the head as they're sitting in front of this curtain. So that's going to put blood on the curtain. This is the fucking 1870s. They don't have fucking Clorox and, and whatever. So they have these stained curtains, and that was the thing that saved that dude's life and Kate literally tried to wanted him to sit there. Now, another man named Father Paul had also claimed that he had been to the Bender Inn, and that when he saw one of the Bender men, he said he was in there and he saw one of the Bender men walk around the curtain, and he looked at the man, and the man kind of looked at him, and the father thought he was acting weird, and he took a hammer and concealed it up his sleeve. The man did. Whichever man it was. And he said when he saw that happen, he started to feel really uncomfortable. And he said to Kate, because she was in the middle of cooking for him, and he said, "I'll be right back. I need to go tend to my horse." And he hopped on his horse and fucking booked out of there. He was like, hell to the no. That was God being like, "Get the fuck out, bro." Now, 2 more men also had claimed that they had actually gone to the inn to talk to Kate and to experience her psychic abilities. And the men said that they actually refused to sit at the table because they did not feel comfortable sitting at the table. And instead, they continued to stand near the kitchen counter to try to eat their food. And they both said that Kate became very mean to them. And as she was being mean, both Bender men emerged from behind the curtain, and the two men felt super fucking uneasy about it because it did not feel like a good situation, and they ran. They ran as fast as they could. Now, when they discovered, like when they went into the home, they also saw, I think it was like 20 bullet holes inside the home. And so their thought process is one of these fucking people that escaped were shooting at them when they left because they were being chased or whatever. So this is, I mean, between the experiences that other people had, just people who knew them, specifically like neighbors, plus these people, it's like, okay, yeah, these guys were definitely killing them. And it definitely was the men were bashing them in the head with the hammer at least. And then, of course, their throats get cut. Now, the Benders were also known to have sold things like horses, saddles, clothes, and other possessions. Now, when people would ask, like, oh, where'd this come from? This is so nice. They'd be like, oh, these were items that had been given to us because the person who stopped in to get stuff didn't have any money, so we just traded. Or you fucking killed them and took it off their body.
Like an $800 saddle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So eventually, a $3,000, which is $79,000 today. So a $3,000 reward is offered for the help in capturing the Bender family. Now, yes. $1,000 of this actually came from the York family because they were like, we want to know who killed our brother. We want revenge. And then $2,000 of it came from the Kansas City governor, who was like, we aren't having this shit in my state. Okay, so they
ain't in Kansas
not
no
in
more.
Kansas. So, and they don't talk like that. No, obviously. But they offered that. Now, unfortunately, their crimes were discovered too late, and the Benders were obviously long fucking gone. And there were a bunch of tips that would come in, claiming that there were sightings of the Bender women, there were sightings of the Bender men, and there was like detectives and all these people who would follow up on this shit to see like, okay, like, are they here? Now, for the most part, there were suspicions of where they had gone, but there was never any proof. And it was actually said that the family had split up and that it was Ma Bender and John Sr. who went to one state. And then John Jr. and Kate Bender went to a different state. So they split up. Now, this is why y'all going to hate this. I hate to report this, but the family was never actually found. And every time there was a sighting, the authorities would get there too late. So by the time that the authorities would get to the location, the Benders were already gone. However, in 1889, there was a reported sighting of Ma Bender and Kate Bender, and they were caught. And they were brought to court. And they claimed when they caught Ma Bender and Kate Bender, they had different names. And they claimed that they were not these people. And they kept saying like, nope, that's not us. I don't know who you are. And then at one point, they turn on each other and start blaming. Nope, she is Ma Bender and she is Kate Bender, but I'm not her. So they're doing this shit. Well, they end up actually getting let go. And the reason they get let go is because they bring in witnesses of people who knew the Benders when they lived in Kansas. And there was like 3 or 4 men they brought in that were like, I absolutely know who they are. And they came in, and out of those 3 men, only one could positively say that he thought this was Ma and Kate Bender. The rest of the people that they interviewed were like, I mean, it could be them, but I'm honestly not 100%. And the one thing that was really weird was the lady who they claimed was Ma Bender had no accent and could speak English.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing that it was like, or maybe that's not them. Now, due to the lack of evidence, the women are released. And so like, I hate but love this episode because there is no conclusive ending. They literally never get caught. So they literally die in some fashion, some way in their natural life, I guess. They were on the run though for the rest of their natural lives. They never, I can promise you, they probably never got comfortable. But I love this episode because it was America's first serial killer family. And I think that the story needed to be told because then y'all know that even in the 1870s, families of serial killers existed. So that's the story of the Bloody Benders. I do have some shots, but I know it's not our norm. And the reason I said in the beginning that you'll never, ever hear an episode like this again is because I will not give you an episode where the killer is not caught. I don't like that. And I don't like it when you don't know who the killer is. But this one was a special episode.
Yeah, we got to talk about like the family of serial
killers.
It's
the first family of serial killers. So I'll tell you my shots, and then if you have anything you want to add. So, okay, I've already said this, but the Bloody Benders are deemed to be America's first serial killer family. Not to be confused, of course, with like the Manson family. That's another family, but see, it's a little different because this whole ass family all work together to kill these people. They're literal serial killers. Now, John Jr. was actually known as John Gebhardt. Now, the reason they know his name was John Gebhardt is because when they were looking through the home, they found a Bible. And if any of you know anything about back in the day, especially in the 1800s, and if any of you are religious, Bibles were like your family tree. Like if you had a family member, they were written into the Bible. There's a section in a Bible where you get to put all your family members. In that, there is no John Bender, but there is a John Gebhardt. And it is John Gebhardt's Bible. So they now realize that John Gebhardt was John Jr. So there's that. And they also, some people, specifically the neighbors, said, by the way, Kate and John were not brother and sister. They were husband and wife. Like 100% the way they talked to each other, treated each other, acted, they absolutely were husband and wife. So we don't think they were actually brother and sister. So that's interesting. Now, here are some quotes from people who actually knew the Benders and had written about them, because there have been a lot. I mean, you got to figure 1800s, they were writing at least newspaper articles and stuff. So these are direct fucking quotes from people who actually knew the Benders. The first one is, the old man was a repulsive, hideous brute without a redeeming trait, dirty, profane, and ill-tempered. So that's John Bender.
Well, and maybe John Bender was the one doing all the killing, and he was just so fucking mean that everybody fell into place. You know what I mean? Like,
no. So no, actually, it is believed that Kate was the mastermind, and it is believed that Kate literally would lure people over and basically talked her family into killing people, and her reasoning for it was, one, she liked it, but more importantly, she would sell it to them as like, well, but we can take their stuff and sell it, like we can make money. But people through history, through all the historical things, they all believe that Kate was the mastermind, because she was the one who would lure people. She would use herself to get people to come. A lot of the people who showed up there would never have known about it, except for Kate made herself and the Bender Inn very well known. So they all think, I mean, the consensus is Kate was behind it.
Makes sense.
Now, another quote is, old Mrs. Bender was a dirty old Dutch crone. Her face was a fit picture of the midnight hag that wove the spell, murderous ambition about the soul of Macbeth.
That is a
big
quote.
So Ma Bender and Pa Bender were fucking brutish ass people, apparently. And then the last quote that I have is, young Bender. Oh, they're talking about John. This is a quote that's talking about John Bender. John Jr. Bender. It says, young Bender, seen when excited, recalled the grave robbing hyena at once to mind. So what they mean by that is, when you would talk or look at John Bender, he was like a fucking excited ass little hyena. Yeah. And that's like what his laugh was like a little fucking hyena.
Creepy.
Fucking creepy. Now, it is also believed that the Bender family actually killed at least 20 people over the span of 2 years. And the burial site of the victims was actually deemed Hell's Half Acre, which is their property. And it is also believed now that the Benders were not actually Bender. The thought is that only the mother and daughter were actually related. And there were also reports, again, that neighbors claim that Kate and John Jr. were husband and wife. So what they actually think is that that John Bender Sr. was not Kate's father. There was historical stuff that points back to an Elmira Bender, who, well, she was not Bender then, but when you look up the historical stuff on Elmira Bender, it actually shows that she was married to somebody else, like, and that she had a bunch of kids. Like, I think they said like 12 kids or some shit. And that Kate was actually labeled as her 5th child. And that for some reason, some way, she takes Kate and leaves, and she meets John Bender. They get married. And then as Kate gets older, she meets John Jr., John Gebhardt. They get married, but they portray themselves as a family of 4, of a mother, father, daughter, son. I don't know why. I don't know why they would have done that.
Maybe more trustworthy, like if Kate was the
true.
one.
Well, and if you think that Kate's not married, That's a better, like some of the people who would actually show up to the Bender Inn were people who literally, they said, like, because they would tell people like, oh, I'm going to stop at the Bender Inn because there's this woman there, Kate, who is, she's really nice to look at. She's really pretty, blah, 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 blah. So she was actually like bringing people in too. Yes, that is the story of the Bloody Benders. It doesn't have a happy ending because nobody gets caught and a bunch of people died. But it was so long ago that I'm like, nah, whatever. And if you're interested in the historical side, like I said, I do have a book that I'm going to recommend. If anybody's more interested and wants to dig more deeply into this, because I'm telling you, there is so much more. It's just I can only say so much in an episode. So the book is called Hell's Half Acre, and it's written by Susan Jonusas. And it is by far one of the most informational and well-written books. It tells you historically what's going on. And she, Susan brings a lot of facts, and so I like that. I will tell you that right now, the last I saw, I think the property was actually bought, but the property went up for sale not too long, like 2020 or something. And apparently the person who bought it actually had said that they were going to do like an excavation dig on the property, again 160 acres, to see if there's any other bodies there. So whoever bought it knew about the Bender stuff.
True serial killer fan.
For real. But like all of their belongings, all of their, where their home was and their barn, all of that was taken down. Like there's none of that. But I know that if you go to Kansas, there is or was at least a museum that has a whole thing about it. Because again, it's Kansas's serial killers, like family of serial killers. So it's very interesting. Again, it's always dark because it's serial killers, but for some reason when it's in the 1870s it just doesn't bother me that much because it was so long ago.
Just don't sit with your back to a curtain.
Don't ever sit into a house with your back to a fucking curtain. That's about the only. And don't travel in a horse and wagon and a horse and wagon. Yeah, don't travel like that. Like take a plane or a train or a car and use main roads.
Yeah.
That's about all you can say about that. That's what you can learn from this. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it doesn't have the endings like normal, but again, this was a one-off new intro, new outro, episode 52, 1 year into this thing. I had to do something a little different.
Yeah, and thank you all the listeners out there that have been listening to us for the 1 year or even part of the 1 year. We appreciate it.
We do.
We'll continue to do it.
We will.
Hopefully we'll celebrate year 2 with you guys.
We will.
And
I think that's it.
As usual, share.
Share as normal.
Share.
And don't forget, we drop new episodes every single Thursday, so make sure you're following us for that. And this is the part where I'm going to say I really hope you enjoyed our new intro, and I hope you enjoy our new outro, and goodbye.
And I'll follow that up with the typical bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.